Please stop gaslighting me.
I'm not gaslighting you.
Controlling, manipulative.
We like to believe we steer our own lives. But what if the real drivers are invisible, subtle words, shifting memories, silent expectations? Tonight you'll meet 5 ordinary people who thought they were in control until the strings appeared. Before we begin, ask yourself, how sure are you that every choice you make is truly your own? Nina met him at a bookstore. He asked for a recommendation, smiled at her answer, and followed it with a joke about reading the last page first. The kind of charm that does not feel rehearsed, just rare, intentional, safe. He listened closely, laughed in the right places, told her he liked her laugh, said it sounded like a secret worth keeping. They started seeing each other within a week. He brought her coffee with almond milk after remembering a throwaway comment about her lactose intolerance. He asked questions that made her feel seen, texted her good morning, not in a clingy way, in a way that made the world feel less lonely. Nina was not naive. She had walls. She had been through the usual heartbreaks, the almosts and what-ifs, but she also had not felt that light in a long time. 2 months in, she told her sister she might have found someone different, better. And for a while, she believed it. Then, the lightness shifted. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. It started with moments that did not add up. She would mention a film they planned to watch, and he would say they never talked about it. She would bring up a dinner reservation, and he would insist they agreed not to go out that night. At first, she blamed herself. She had always been forgetful, prone to second-guessing. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe he was right. But doubt began to bloom, quietly at first. She found herself rereading old texts before raising a topic, just to be sure. She started journaling events, not because she wanted to, but because she needed evidence anchors for her memory. One evening, after a disagreement over who left the door unlocked, she scrolled through her camera roll and found a photo she had taken that morning. The lock. Engaged. Time-stamped. She showed him. He did not flinch. Instead, he tilted his head and said, "You really think you need to document things just to talk to me?" And that was the moment it clicked. It had never been about the truth. It was about control. The gaslighting had been subtle, gentle, wrapped in affection, but it was real and it was working. Psychologically, gaslighting exploits uncertainty. The manipulator destabilizes reality just enough to make the target lean on them for the correct version of events. The more you doubt yourself, the easier you are to control. Nina's self-trust eroded in increments. She spoke less, questioned more, apologized for things she had not done. Every conversation felt like a trap. When she finally confronted him, he looked wounded and whispered, "I would never hurt you on purpose." Guilt became a leash. She left 3 weeks later, quietly and without grand speeches. Recovery was slow, but each day she felt the fog lift a little more. She learned that some manipulation looks like care, and the closer it sits to love, the harder it is to recognize. From quiet control to corporate promise. Manipulation wears many faces. Sometimes it hides in loyalty, in titles offered tomorrow, in ladders that never reach the roof moving, just far enough out of reach that you never stop climbing. Victor signed the offer before his graduation robe arrived. The Startups website boasted neon colors, unlimited coffee, and a mission to disrupt human potential. Recruiters called him a culture fit. Stock options sounded romantic when you have student loan panic and a half-working laptop. Week 1 felt like summer camp with laptops. Morning stand-ups ended with group fist bumps. The CEO skateboarded through corridors, and Slack exploded with avocado emojis whenever someone shipped code. Victor stayed late because everyone else did. They called it passion. Ava, his manager, slid into his DMs on day 5. "You have a rare instinct. Stick with me and you'll be running a team by Christmas." The sentence travelled from phone glow to bloodstream. He showed the message to his dad with pride. By month 2, he was writing product specs, triaging customer bugs at midnight, and mentoring an intern named Jill, who asked if he was a senior engineer. He laughed and said, something like that, ignoring the sting that his payshub still read associate. Quarterly OKRs arrived colour-coded goals tied to phantom bonuses. Ava assigned Victor a stretch objective: rebuild the onboarding flow in 6 weeks. No budget, no designer, just hustle and heart. She assured him the exec team would notice. Victor spent spring sleeping beside his laptop. He coded on train rides, pitched copy tweaks between forkfuls of takeaway noodles, and tested edge cases at 3 a.m, while roommates shouted at video games. Ship day applause filled the open office. The CEO high-fived him and said, "You're going places." Places? Yes. Titles? No. Performance review season arrived with beanie bag seating and a PowerPoint on growth mindset. Ava praised Victor's grit, then pivoted. Leadership loves you, but we need to see consistent excellence before we adjust comp. Let's revisit after Q3. Cool? Victor swallowed frustration like stale coffee. He redoubled effort. He organised a hack day, fixed a payment to gateway outage on a Sunday morning, and flew coach to Vegas to demo for a single investor because Ava had a conflict. She messaged, asterisk, "Couldn't have done it without you, superstar." Summer melted into autumn. The intern he trained left for a competitor with a higher title. Victor's code still powered 40% of daily sign-ups, but his promotion request sat under budget review. One night, a recruiter pinged him on LinkedIn. "Saw your onboarding work, brilliant. Ever thought about leading a team?" Victor stared at the message like forbidden fruit. He closed the tab, reopened it, typed "tell me more," deleted, typed "sure," deleted again. That weekend, he flew home for his mother's birthday. At the table, his older sister asked, "You look exhausted. Are they paying you what you're worth yet?" Victor joked about startup equity. His mother's eyes reflected worry he recognised from childhood grocery trips when coupons decided dinner. Back in the city, he calculated hours worked since hire, 2,340. Salary divided by hours equaled less than his local barista earned. He built a spreadsheet titled Reality Check. Column A, project shipped. Column B, promised reward. Column C, actual reward. Rows bled red. He scheduled a meeting with Ava, brought data, industry salary bands, and 3 clear requests. Senior title, 20% raise, development budget. Ava nodded, thanked him for being proactive, and said she'd champion the conversation. 3 weeks passed. Calendar invites vanished into reschedules. Slack messages read, still pushing, hang tight. The CFO left for new adventures. Stock price dipped after a lukewarm TechCrunch review. The free lunch fridge disappeared overnight. Victor opened LinkedIn again, replied, "Absolutely interested," to the recruiter. 2 interviews later, he had an offer. Senior product engineer. Salary 30% higher. Remote stipend. Mentorship budget. Start date flexible. He handed Ava his notice on a rainy Tuesday. She looked genuinely stunned, then softly accusatory. "We were grooming you for something big." He almost laughed. Instead, he said, "I know," and thanked her for the opportunity. Exit interview HR asked what would have convinced him to stay. He answered, "A ladder with rungs that don't evaporate when I grab them." On his last afternoon, co-workers signed a farewell card plastered with rocket emojis. Victor left it on the desk. Outside, drizzle felt like permission to breathe. He walked to the subway lighter, realizing hope should be a compass, not a leash. Ambition can chain us, but some chains grow inward. We polish a version of ourselves until the reflection outshines the reality. And the longer we protect that mirror, the more the untouched self waits in silence. Marla did not remember the exact moment she decided emotions were dangerous. She only knew that by age 11, she could predict her father's anger by the way his keys hit the counter, and that by age 12, She could end an argument before it began by smiling, nodding, and making herself small. Survival required strategy. Her strategy was serenity. By 30, she wore composure like professional clothing. In the office, she was the colleague who solved crises before managers noticed them. At family gatherings, she organised cakes, gifts, and airport pickups so precisely that no one else had to think. Friends called her The Rock. They meant it as praise, so she accepted the title even as her jaw clenched through the night until teeth cracked. Calm gained her promotions and gratitude, but it cost her presence. She never tasted celebration, only relief that disaster had been avoided. When co-workers toasted a product launch, she slipped away to rewrite meeting notes. When her sister's wedding band glimmered under reception lights, Marla refilled water glasses rather than dance. The body keeps invoices, the mind refuses to open. Marla's arrived on a Tuesday during a performance review. Her vision narrowed, palms tingled, heart sprinted. Convinced she was dying, she staggered to emergency. Normal EKG, normal blood work, discharge paperwork scribbled panic attack, and a brochure on breathing techniques. At home, she sat in a silent living room and felt something unfamiliar. Anger that her own body had betrayed the truce she brokered with life. Anger felt hot, so she labelled it stress and booked therapy to improve productivity. During the first session, she listed bullet points. Optimize time management, reduce insomnia, eliminate anxiety spikes. The therapist asked when she last felt genuine sadness. Marla answered with a spreadsheet of achievements. The therapist asked again, softer. Tears formed without permission, frightening in their suddenness. Over months, they traced patterns. Fawn-response, the therapist said, is a survival adaptation where pleasing replaces presence. Marla realized that every yes she spoke to others was a no whispered to herself. She had become a curator of external comfort and an exile of internal truth. Homework began small. Return an incorrect coffee order instead of drinking it cold. Say, I disagree, once per meeting. Cry in the shower and do not apologize to the tiles. Each act felt like stepping onto a frozen lake, but ice did not break. The world made room for her honesty, sometimes awkwardly, mostly without comment. One afternoon, a junior analyst crashed Marla's meticulously prepared budget model by accident. Old instinct urged silence and silent repair. New practice urged expression. She asked for help instead of fixing it alone. The analyst apologized, they collaborated, and the model was restored in half the time. Marla felt a strange, buoyant relief, proof that vulnerability could invite support rather than chaos. The hardest test came at home. Her father, older and softer, still carried weather systems in his tone. When he criticized her for skipping a family dinner, she breathed and replied, I cannot be everywhere. I hope you understand. He frowned, confused by the boundary. The ceiling did not fall. Marla hung up and felt space expand in her chest. With practice, calm became choice rather than armor. She laughed loudly at a movie, left dishes until morning, told a friend she was hurt by a forgotten birthday text. Some relationships deepened, a few drifted. Authenticity has a filtration cost, the therapist warned. But the people who stay will know you, not the statue you once sculpted. Marla still feels the old reflex when conflict flickers. She breathes, names the feeling, decides whether calm serves truth or cages it. Boundaries, she learned, are doors with handles on her side. Healing did not erase the girl who balanced anger on quiet shoulders. It invited her to set that weight down. So far, manipulation has been accidental, systemic, or self-protective. Yet there is a deliberate variety cultivated over decades. It rewrites family memory to secure present power. Now we enter the archive where stories are polished until fact is unrecognizable, and truth waits beneath dust for its turn to speak. Evelyn learned early that stories are currency. At 10, she listened to her grandmother retell the family's immigration tale, an ocean crossing, a single suitcase, a triumph in the new world. Later, she discovered freight records proving 2 trunks and a first-class ticket. But by then, Evelyn understood the lesson. Facts matter less than the feeling they provoke. In her 20s, she became the archivist of the Whitley clan. She scanned photographs, digitized letters, labelled everything with acid-free pens. Relatives called her the historian and sent shoeboxes of ephemera. She accepted the role with reverence, and a quiet agenda shaped the narrative. There were Blemish San uncle jailed for embezzlement, a great aunt who vanished after a scandal, land acquired through dubious deeds. Evelyn's guiding principle was cohesion. If a fact cracked the family veneer, she filed it under private on an encrypted drive and continued polishing the public record. Reunions became performances. She set up poster boards, black and white portraits under gold headings like steadfast integrity and service to community. Cousins snapped selfies in front of ancestors they hardly knew. Elders basked in sanitized nostalgia. Children absorbed identity like sunscreen, invisible yet protective. The cost surfaced slowly. Evelyn's niece Lila entered university and chose history as a major. For a term paper, she asked to access the family archive. Evelyn provided curated folders, but Lila wanted originals. She travelled to county courthouses, sifted through microfiche, and uncovered documents Evelyn had buried. Court transcripts, bankruptcy filings, birth certificates with erased names. Thanksgiving tension thickened the house. Over pumpkin pie, Lila challenged the myth. "Why pretend we were flawless when the truth is richer?" Evelyn bristled. Context matters. Those records don't define us. Voices rose, children stared, plates cooled. After dinner, great-uncle Theo approached Lila. He was 90 and mostly quiet, but that night he offered a confession. The family homestead was bought at auction after its owners were forced out by debt. Evelyn overheard and felt panic flutter decades of narrative control threatened by a frail voice and a curious grandchild. She confronted Theo. "Why revisit pain?" he replied. "Because truth belongs to the living." The sentence echoed in Evelyn's chest long after guests left. Weeks later, Theo started a podcast with Lila, recording oral histories of overlooked relatives. Downloads climbed. Family group chats buzzed with debate. Some praised transparency. Others begged Evelyn to restore order. She drafted a memo insisting on unity, but hesitation crept in. Had her stewardship become censorship? Power built on omission is fragile. A single verified document can topple years of curated legacy. Evelyn feared irrelevance more than scandalous truth flowed freely. What was the point of her vaults? The tipping point came at the next reunion. Theo rolled in with a portable projector and played an old 8mm film showing a foreclosure auction. A young version of Evelyn's grandfather nodding as bids closed. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn felt the walls of her archive tremble. In the silence that followed, she stood and addressed the family. Her voice shook but carried. "I wanted to protect us. Instead, I robbed us of complexity. I'm opening the archives." Keys clinked on the table password to the encrypted drive written on a note. Relief and terror mingled. Some relatives hugged her. A few turned away. Truth is a solvent. It loosens shame, but dissolves illusion. Evelyn spent the next year digitizing everything. Color recoding, verified, disputed, and myth. She added footnotes, dissenting letters, contradictory memories. The record became messy, alive, human. She learned that honesty does not shatter heritage, strengthens it by letting descendants inherit resilience, not perfection. Stories of failure and repair teach more than polished triumph. Manipulation can seize history, but it also hides in daily smiles and subtle gestures influence, so gentle it feels like kindness, until you count the cost. Now, we follow a chameleon whose charm shapes rooms and rearranges realities without ever raising a voice. Jamal understood people by watching eyebrows. An arch here meant interest, a twitch there signaled doubt. At 16, he worked the counter of a shoe store and learned that if he mirrored a customer's posture, asked one open question, then paused for half a second longer than comfort allowed, they almost always bought the higher-priced pair. Charm was not a mask. It was fabric he wove around any moment. In university, he joined the debate club and never lost an argument, not because his evidence was perfect, but because he detected the instant a judge wanted relief from tension. He provided it with a joke, a grin, a rhetorical ribbon that made surrender feel like collaboration. Jamal's friends called him magnetic. Their parents labelled him charismatic. He wrote those words on sticky notes above his desk. Magnetic, charismatic. They felt like superpowers. Yet every superpower has a price. His arrived as doubt whispered at night, "If you stop smiling, will they still stay?" He graduated into corporate sales where quotas defined worth. Jamal crushed numbers by combining empathy with flattery. He remembered children's names, spouses' birthdays, even a prospect's favourite jazz saxophonist. Deals closed, commissions stacked, management flashed thumbs-up emojis and called him the closer in meetings. But success bred dependency. He measured days by conversions, friendships by referrals, self-esteem by applause emojis. Authentic emotion felt inefficient, so he left it on read. When his partner Maya asked why he never showed frustration, he kissed her forehead and changed the subject with a soft laugh that tasted like misdirection. One September evening, his charm backfired. A long-term client invited him to dinner after signing a renewal. Wine flowed, compliments sparkled, and Jamal performed the role of attentive confidant. Walking to the rideshare stand, the client leaned in, mistaking warmth for invitation. Jamal stepped back, apologized, called them both tired. The client's smile stiffened. 3 weeks later, that renewal was rescinded during legal review. The incident rattled him. For the first time, his charisma felt like a loaded die win until it rolls off the table. He began tracking his own behaviour. How many times did he laugh without amusement? How many agreements born from fear of disappointing others? The tally blurred. His therapist, booked after Maya, threatened distance suggested, an experiment called Neutral Day. 12 waking hours without strategic charm. No default grin, no adaptive mirroring, only honest expression. Jamal agreed, then panicked. What if silence erased him? Neutral Day fell on a Tuesday full of meetings. He greeted colleagues with a simple nod instead of banter. In a pitch call, he delivered facts minus sparkle. The prospective client asked 2 blunt questions, sensed no pressure, and scheduled a follow-up instead of signing on the spot. Jamal felt failure prick sweat under his collar. That night, Maya asked how he felt. He answered, exposed. She asked what he wanted. He inhaled, considered reflexive alignment with her wishes, and instead said, rest. They spent the evening in separate corners of the sofa reading. Silence pressed first, then softened. Over weeks, Jamal alternated neutral days with normal days. Metrics dipped, then stabilized. Some deals took longer, but client churn dropped. Colleagues noticed he disagreed now and then. Respect replaced novelty. The bigger shift was internal. Without constant performance, he discovered stray emotions, long starved of language. Frustration tasted metallic, disappointment heavy, joy suddenly intimate instead of theatrical. Maya said his laugh had changed, smaller, truer, landing deeper in the chest. One afternoon, his manager offered promotion to director of sales, praising his contagious optimism. Jamal asked for a day to consider. At home, he outlined pros and cons in 2 columns, realised both lists were authored by old reflexes, status, applause, external need. He declined the role, requested a lateral move to product strategy, where outcomes mattered more than charm. Friends questioned the decision. Jamal smiled, brief, genuine, and said, I want work that survives my silence. The sentence felt like stepping onto solid ground after years of persuading himself water was floor. Adaptive charisma can uplift or consume. Jamal still uses it on stage at conferences, But offstage, he lets expressions form unedited. People sometimes flinch at the honesty, yet those who stay become anchors rather than audience. Manipulation is not always malicious. Sometimes, it is a smile dialed to the exact warmth a room expects, a promise of perfection that erases the imperfect self beneath. Escaping the chameleon's shimmer requires courage to disappoint, to reveal edges, to trust that genuine connection can withstand unpolished truth. From Nina's mirror, Victor's ladder, Marla's calm, Evelyn's archive, and Jamal's smile, the thread is constant. Control seeks comfort, but costs authenticity. Freedom begins the moment we trade certainty for honesty, even if our voice trembles when we speak.